That's crazy.
Well, anyways, awesome. Yeah, we share a interest in sports, obviously, and sports storytelling. We obviously have some different backgrounds. You've done a lot of work in the sports and entertainment, industry. So, why are you interested in having this conversation, sir?
Well, obviously we've known each other a long time and always been good at talking sports together. Yeah. But a thing that I think sets us apart from other people is how loyal to the soil we are here in San Diego. The civic pride that we have for our city and our sports community, I think is unrivaled by most. And just having a platform to be able to bring the San Diego perspective into the world of sports. We're not just interested in sports here in San Diego, but everything that happens around the sports world. In the NBA, the Kawhi connection. There's always a way to tie it back into a San Diegan's perspective on sports, and just happy to have a place to do that.
Yeah, truly excited. I think the name Best Coast Sports Connection, hopefully that doesn't sound too pompous, but, West Coast, Best Coast, and we're talking sports, obviously, but, we want this to be a podcast. We want this to be a conversation. Obviously, we're live streaming it on Facebook. We want this to be a community thing where we're interviewing awesome guests and, having good talks amongst ourselves. Thomas Conroy, Mr. Producer, you've been in San Diego for a while. Give us a little bit of your background sports-wise and where you've lived across this beautiful country.
Well, I grew up in New York and lifelong Yankees, Giants,
boo,
Rangers, Knicks fan. But here's the caveat. My grandmother and my two aunts moved out here to San Diego, and that's where I developed my fondness for the Padres and the Chargers. Chargers first, Padres second. But it's just a great town, and one thing we can all share is our hatred for Los Angeles.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about that team, the Los Angeles Chargers of Carson, later on at the end of this conversation. But speaking of those teams, we're here in a location that is really awesome. It's McGregor's here in Mission Valley. We're 0.4 miles away from what is now SDCCU Stadium, formerly the Q, formerly Jack Murphy Stadium, where so many great teams, well, I shouldn't say so many, but a handful of great teams.
A couple of them,
gave us a plethora of memories.
Yep.
Early 80s with the before I was alive, but early 80s with Chargers power and Padres team going to the 84 World Series. And then for us in our childhoods, mid-90s, a World Series team, a couple of playoff teams for the Padres, and then the Chargers' lone Super Bowl appearance in the 94-95 season.
Yep.
It's just a nostalgic area here in Mission Valley for me.
Yeah, it really is. And if you've never been to McGregor's, this place is like a dream trophy room. There is like the ultimate man cave. You got jerseys up on the wall, memorabilia everywhere. The vibe here is just so cool, and what better place to talk sports than right here in one of the meccas of Mission Valley at McGregor's.
Yes, absolutely. Well, as you can tell, it's a little quiet today, which we don't mind. We're coming to you in the early afternoon, but going along, we may have a little bit more fun with this when a few more people are out. When the action's cranking here at McGregor's. Yeah, really, really fun spot for sporting events. Let's give an outlook of what we're going to talk about today. When I was first setting this, this idea up, I was like, oh, we're starting in July. That's like the worst sports month. But, starting here in the first week, we have some really good storylines. NBA free agency, if you've been following that, the last day has been crazy. MLB All-Star Game coming up next week. We can touch on that today and then give a more in-depth look at it next week. I hear that, Brian. As us true Padres fans, we're not feeling too good today. A snub or two.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay, well, we'll get into that there in a moment. And then to conclude this talk, hopefully we'll have some time to talk about that team that deserted us here in San Diego, the Chargers, and maybe touch on a few other sports here in San Diego. But it is, a weird thing being here in San Diego when you have so many passionate fans and you only have one, major team of the major four sports.
Yeah, it just kind of forces us to put all of our energy into the Padres pot. We do have a lot of really good teams that are in professional leagues, just not the big four
Yeah.
in American sports: the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, and then the NHL. So, yeah, I mean, we put a lot of pride into what the Padres do, and for a lot of us, there's been very lean years,
Yes.
and it's starting to turn around and give us something to really be fired up about. So, a very exciting time here in San Diego.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into our big first topic, NBA free agency. Just over my shoulder here, we have a jersey of a San Diego legend, Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
Who, the most fun player coming out of San Diego State, somewhat, unknown or not highly profiled, gets drafted, goes to the Spurs, wins an MVP finals MVP for them, goes to Toronto and wins a second MVP, and now he's ready for another hint of free agency. Still, no decision has been made. There's been ties to staying with the Raptors, maybe going to the Clippers, maybe going to the Lakers with AD and LeBron. Any initial thoughts on that, Brian?
Well, I mean, one thought from our perspective, watching him play at San Diego State and taking that team to the Elite Eight when he was there, just being a total stud as a sophomore on that squad, putting the team on his back countless times. We always knew he was going to be something special. But if you had told me that there was a crystal ball and all of a sudden in 2019 Kawhi Leonard was going to be regarded as probably the best player on the planet and the top free agent and where he signs is going to completely change the dynamic of power in the NBA, I would have thought you were crazy. Always thought he was a really good player, a clutch player, a low-key guy, worked his tail off. Everybody who was around him loved the guy, but he's quiet. He doesn't, feed off that superstar thing, the mentality that everybody is always looking for in a superstar player, but he just gets the job done. And man, I don't think it could happen to a better person. And again, we got that San Diego connection with Kawhi, so just very curious to see what he does. And that's kind of the only mystery left. You talk about NBA free agency just started, but we're 12 hours in and 95% of the decisions have been made, and the one looming over the entire basketball world is, where will Kawhi go?
Certainly. I just don't see him going to the Lakers, even though there's so much hype and late talk right now that he may be going there, just because he's always been in these smaller markets. But Thomas, my producer, sir, what would it be like if Kawhi landed with the Lakers, joins Anthony Davis and LeBron? You could maybe say 3 of the top 5 or at least top 10 players combining alongside each other on the same team.
I think it's easily they're the favorites to win next year's championship. I mean, they take over the mantle from Golden State, but the one thing that makes me curious with Golden State is they've now turned their team by acquiring D'Angelo Russell from New Jersey into a 3-on-3 team, which I mean is 3 guards, and you're going to have to you're going to have to get smaller, I think, to compete with them, because if all 3 of those guys are hot, I think this is going to outrun you to the basket, and I think it's going to be probably the old NBA style of like the 70s of 145 the 140 games, because that's just a lot of speed on the court in a 3-guard offense, and it'll be interesting to see how these teams, if the Lakers get Kawhi, is who's he going to guard first of all, and then really LeBron, does he have the stamina at 34, 35 years old to keep up with those 3 players in the Warriors? It's a really intriguing scenario that we can see once Klay gets back, and I think in early February.
Yeah, definitely a great storyline. Looking at the Eastern Conference, KD coming off another great season with the Warriors, unfortunately tearing his Achilles. He colludes with – that's probably not a good word.
How do you really feel, Andy?
He joins Kyrie Irving in Brooklyn. Obviously, KD is going to be out a good chunk of next year. They're looking to land DeAndre Jordan as well, taking a little bit less than that max money to bring in Jordan. How do you see them fitting in the East and potentially coming up to a championship?
I mean, the East is wide open assuming Kawhi leaves Toronto. If Kawhi stays in Toronto, then the East is going to be really interesting, really fun to watch. The 76ers have a great young team. The Bucks, obviously, with the reigning MVP and Giannis, they locked up a couple of their guys, so they're going to be solid. But Brooklyn kind of coming out of nowhere. You know, a lot of people looked at the Knicks as a potential landing spot for a KD and a Kyrie. But now that we know that they're going to Brooklyn, adding DeAndre Jordan, I mean, obviously it's not going to be the same team until KD comes back. But you're looking at a team that could legitimately be, if not the favorite, then one of the title contenders in the East immediately just because of those signings.
Certainly. You talking about that Eastern Conference, one name we haven't mentioned, Kemba Walker, who was with the Connecticut Huskies when they knocked off Kawhi Leonard and the San Diego State Aztecs back in that 2011 NCAA tournament. You know, not a super, profile name in the NBA, but he lands a max contract with Boston as that Atlantic division in the Eastern Conference kind of changes around. You have Horford going to the 76ers. Now it looks like Butler's, going from the Sixers to Miami. So a lot of changeover in that Atlantic division. And then that other team, the New York Knicks. Thomas, do you still have any feelings for them? Because they are just seen as, I guess, the embarrassment of the league right now.
Well, it's funny. Look, I thought all the talk about them getting Durant and Kyrie Irving was really out in the skies because every time I read something it was going to be a sign and trade, and I just looked at their roster and I was like, who are you signing? I mean, who are you trading for after the Knicks? After you sign Durant to a max deal, because the Knicks don't have anything that would remotely interest the Warriors, and even if they kept Kristaps Porzingis, I don't think he's the type of player that they like in their style of offense. So I never saw the fit. I never believed any of the rumors of the hype that was coming out of New York and also ESPN about Durant going to New York. What they did in free agency is really the exact way you want to rebuild a team. You sign a bunch of professional basketball players that are not stars but know how to play the game, and then you infiltrate them into your locker room to teach these young players how to play in the NBA. And they're all signed on two-year deals, except for Randall, who's on a 3-year deal. And then you go from there. You just won 14 games. If you thought you were going to win an NBA title by getting Durant, you're delusional. But you go from 14 to maybe high 20s, and then you go to 30s, and then you go to 40s. That's what the Nets did. So applaud the Nets for actually building a team and making them a viable option for Durant and Irving to come to.
So wait, Thomas, I think Thomas might be the only person on earth who thinks that the Knicks are having a good free agency, which means he's lived in San Diego for way too long. He's seeing the glass so half full. San Diego's wearing off on you, Thomas. That's pretty good. A true San Diegan now.
Unfortunate for Knicks fans. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, Durant obviously makes you a playoff team, if nothing else, but it's going to be a few more tough years for them.
Apparently now we're high on the Knicks, so I had no idea, man. I like that rosy optimism there in MSG.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just trying to give content here.
Any kind of content here on the connection. One other NBA topic. A phenomenal athlete that is just going to be amazing to watch. Zion Williamson, first overall pick a couple weeks ago, joins the New Orleans Pelicans, and they just got a plethora of young talent. What do you see from him in the next couple of years with that squad?
I think that's an exciting team. I like the fact that they unloaded AD a year early and got a lot of young assets for that. New Orleans is the type of team that has to build through young players in the draft. Like, Thomas was just talking about, that's what the Knicks are doing, what the Nets did before that. But New Orleans is not going to be a free agent destination where these big guys are going to want to go play. So they have to do it the way that they are doing it. And obviously, winning the lottery was huge, and getting Zion. That team is going to be young and exciting, and I think Zion immediately steps in and becomes an impact player. Wow, what he did at Duke was unbelievable. The stuff he did in high school before that, he had been so hyped, and then you look at him, you're like, okay, there's no way he can take that into the NBA and translate. or into college basketball, high D1, and he was just standout, far and away the best player in the country. I think he immediately comes in, becomes an NBA All-Star in his first year, and we're looking at a potential MVP down the road.
Love it. Speaking of young talent, we'll move it here to the city of San Diego and a different sport.
Oh,
and
baby.
there is a guy, if you have not been following baseball, you're going to want to start watching. Fernando Tatis Jr., just 20 years old, slowly becoming the face of this Padres franchise. As you mentioned earlier, Brian, the Padres finally becoming relevant. They've signed a couple big free agents the last 2 off seasons, but then you have this young kid who is just in another world, I would say.
Yeah, he really is. And the fact that you just said he's 20 and we're sitting here in a bar doing this this podcast, we were going to have him on as a guest, but he's not allowed inside here. So I can't believe he isn't even of drinking age, and he is completely turned this franchise around. I mean, obviously, some of the chips started falling over the last couple of years with the Hosmer signing and then Machado's signing, but you notice when his presence was gone for that month where he missed earlier in the season, it's just a totally different team with him out there on the leadoff spot, wreaking havoc on the base paths. This guy is a bona fide superstar, and he's going to be – I can't believe we have him. It's just unbelievable.
It's so exciting.
Thank you, White Sox.
Yes. He is so exciting to watch. He gives way more than 100% each and every second he's out there on the field. Just a couple things that he's done within the last 2 weeks. There was a pop fly to second base while he was on third base, and he went home and made a run on a sacrifice pop-up, so to speak. And then just yesterday, or 2 days ago, he scored on he was on first base and scored on a single. Yeah. Just kind of a liner to right center field, and he just, from the get-go, was just going full speed. And if you're any kind of defender on a team, if you fall asleep for 1 second, he's going to find a way to get home. Yeah,
he is the fastest player I remember ever seeing play. He's got a cannon of a right arm, but when he's out there on the base pass, it's must-watch television. Even every single at-bat, he's hitting over 330 right now. Anytime he's in the lineup, you have to watch the Padre game. And I don't think we've had a player like that. Honestly, I can't remember one since Tony Gwynn.
Sir.
Yep.
Absolutely. Thomas Conroy, producer, your view on the Padres.
Producer extraordinaire.
Producer extraordinaire. As they head towards the halfway point here, a game above 500. What's your thoughts on this squad?
I'm so excited about this team because there is so much positiveness on this squad that I think, the development of Hunter Renfroe and Franmil Reyes, those are two guys that I think are really going to be legitimate power hitters for at least five or more years. And as you guys, echoing your guys' opinion, I mean, Tatis Jr. is really the most exciting player I've seen in a long time in baseball, and he's just one of those guys that when you watch him, you find like something new, like Brian was mentioning, like I didn't know how fast he was until he scores on an infield fly rule. And I'm like, wait, what? Did I just see that?
Yep.
It's just like little things like that, and I was highly critical of AJ Preller when he first made those mega deals his first year as a general manager, because I thought it was kind of like everything had to work in place for them to win. Okay, what we all thought was the Western Division, then a World Series with with Upton Jr. and then his brother
Justin Upton.
Yeah, and then and then making the trade for Will Myers, and then Kimbrel right before the start of the regular season.
Matt Kemp.
Yeah, it was just like too much to kind of ingest. That this was like a team, but. After
that was exciting, though.
Yeah, it was.
Man, that got me fired up. Yeah. I know that. Didn't work out, but it was exciting.
But I think his trades following have been really, really well done, and especially as Brian mentioned, that Tatis trade was an absolute steal. And it makes, I can't remember James Shields' pitch game here in San Diego watching Tatis Jr., but, kudos to them for sticking to a plan after that first one kind of blew up in their face. But and then obviously with all these international free agents that are going to come our way. I mean, this team, arguably is going to be a contender, not for 1 year, but for 5 or 6 years, depending on how well everybody works out, developmental wise. And when was the last time you heard that about the Padres? Because since I've lived in San Diego, it's always been about that 1 year. In '98, it was always about building Petco Park. So we got to create the super team, and hopefully we get to the World Series. And then after the fact, everybody went their merry way after we accomplished the goal. But this is going to be a team that's going to contend, not for just 1 year, but I believe it's going to contend for about 4 or 5 years.
And, Andy, as we look at this team, and Thomas talks about, how many amazing players we have on the team right now and the way we're positioned for the future, one thing that feels like this team feels completely different than the last decade's worth of teams. But one thing that feels the exact same is that the only all-star selection for the Padres is the closer. And you can just always pencil in whoever's the Padres closer, doesn't matter who the closer is at that time, is going to be an all-star, and usually the only all-star. So this year it felt like, oh my gosh, we actually have legitimate all-star position players, which we haven't had in forever.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the Padres' lack of all-star selections?
Well, I think Tatis would have been there if he hadn't missed his time with the injury. Renfroe and Reyes in the outfield just don't have enough notoriety right now, even though they're both probably top 5, at least top 10, home runs in the NL. I think Machado was.
I think they're both tied for third right now.
Okay. I think Machado was a clear snub. I think 2 things. He kind of came on a little bit later here in this first half of the season, so his numbers weren't there during the first half of the first half. But then I think, the general baseball fan doesn't like Manny Machado a whole lot.
Yeah, which is so weird. I don't understand why. He smiles. He hits the hell out of the baseball, plays really good third base. He's taken a lot of these players under his wing. Seems like a super likable guy. I know there have been incidences in the playoffs and a couple things that he's said along the line, but since he's been with the Padres, and it's only been a handful of months so far, but he's been an ideal player, teammate, everything. He gets a terrible rap. I really don't get it. I haven't seen it from our perspective, and I don't know. There's just something about people want him to fail, and I don't get it.
Yeah, and maybe one final thing you touched on is his defense that that doesn't get seen in the stat book all the time. He not only makes stellar plays, every game, every other game at third. He switched over to shortstop when Tatis was out, and it just switched over like it was nothing.
Transition. It was amazing.
That's a little frustrating. The Dodgers get 4 players to the All-Star game. Bellinger, of course, with his outrageous season, and then a trio of their starters. Colorado with 4 players as well, Nolan Arenado starting at third base. And then Padres, Giants, and Diamondbacks just with 1 player apiece. NL West, Dodgers 57-29, 12 games above Colorado, 13.5 games above the Padres. Do you see them falling back at all, or is there,
no,
any way they don't make the World Series this year?
I mean, World Series, I don't know, because that's one series. Health becomes a factor. Pitching depth. Right now they have a lot of guys pitching well, but can they keep that up or, do it for a 5-game series, a 7-game playoff series? That is just kind of so random in baseball. Running away to the World Series title, I don't know. But running away to the division, absolutely. They're not going to slow down. They have, 100-plus years of history as a franchise, and they have a chance to be the best regular season team in the history of that franchise. So there's no catching these Dodgers right now. And, it's wild card or bust for everybody else in the NL West.
Well, speaking of wild card, it's at least the Padres are in that conversation halfway through the season, just, I believe, a game and a half out right now. So we'll even go more in depth with this baseball talk next week when we focus in on the Home Run Derby, the All-Star Game. Did you know that they've started giving a prize money to the Home Run Derby winner?
Yeah.
Last year it was $125,000 for Bryce Harper. This year it's $1 million.
I know.
I would love for Franmil Reyes to know that because it's more than his contract.
Hunter Renfroe too. Renfroe's on a low deal. those guys, I think both guys should be in the home run derby. I mean, I would love to see Manny Machado in it. The Padres have 3 players with over 20 home runs or more before the All-Star break. They never even had 2 in the franchise's history before an All-Star break. So now we've got 3 guys. Obviously, Machado wouldn't need that money with the contract he signed. But, yeah, Renfroe and Reyes, those guys, 24 home runs apiece. Fran Mill is like the most personable, likable guy ever. He would just crush it on that stage. There's still 3 spots open, and we find out on Wednesday who will be the representatives. There has to be a Padre.
Yes.
They can't. Is it even possible to keep all the Padres out of the All-Star game and the home run derby? I don't know. I'm not seeing
that. Would be the ultimate snub job.
Yeah, slap in the face.
Yes. We'll move away from baseball to talk about football and football, whichever one you like the best. Felt it would be a good final topic to talk about. We lost our beloved Chargers. 2 years ago. They've played 2 seasons as the Los Angeles Chargers at a soccer stadium up in Carson. They've gotten a lot of bad PR, a lot of bad publicity, just for a variety of reasons. Just especially for those of us who are San Diego natives and have been passionate about them. Brian, a couple years after the fact, how are you feeling towards that team?
I just try to block them out completely. It was very devastating when they left. Born and raised in San Diego my entire life here. I'm now 34 years old, and I was a devout Charger fan. My family's had season tickets since I can remember. Spent many Sunday afternoons at Qualcomm just down the street, and Jack Murphy Stadium before that. Came here before a lot of games.
Yes.
And I don't know, they just had always represented us in our home, and now leaving and wearing, Los Angeles on their chest, I just can't get behind it. And I used to get really angry and read everything about them and just seethe and want them to fail. Now I just try to block them out, completely ignore them. I was hoping that they wouldn't go to a Super Bowl because that would be devastating, another reopening of the wound. But yeah, I'm a total non-Charger fan, but I just try to block them out, pretend like they don't even exist. There's only 31 teams in the NFL. So.
Exactly. Yeah, it's been a process for me because similar to you, it was I hate them, like screw you right off the bat.
Yep.
I hope you lose. And then I think over this last season, I kind of became more indifferent and just kind of blocked them out. But I still know a lot of people that are still fans of them, and so and they're friends and even some family. So, I try to be pretty balanced about it, I guess you could say. But I will say it has relieved some of the stress on Sunday afternoons. The Chargers were always a good team at losing games that they should have won, and now any of the 34 Los Angeles Chargers fans can deal with that. So anyways, it's going to be interesting as the time continues. Thomas, as a slight transplant here to San Diego, how do you feel about what Dean Spanos and the Chargers did to San Diego?
I'm literally outraged every time I see that guy's face or his 2 sons. Everything. I can't even express it sometimes. It's the hatred I have for that family. The thing that really does gets me under my skin is we begged him. I mean I'm like Brian when my brother and I when we graduated from college we had season tickets to the Charger games. We sat up in the upper deck, and I remember going to one of those season ticket holder meetings, and I remember fans there that had been there since the Balboa Stadium days, begging him to wear the powder blues as a home jersey. And
you're going there.
And then he had the audacity to look at this wonderful, this spirit of Charger football and basically tell him to go shut up. I'll do what I want to do with my team. And it just brought to me. And then this year when I read in Los Angeles and and the Spanos family goes, hey, we got this wonderful idea. We're going to make the Powder Blues our home jersey. I'm like, you son of a snakey. I want to wear it so bad. It is, it's literally just throwing, not even sand in our face. It's everything in our face. It's our furniture and this and that.
Yep.
There is not 1 minute where I don't root against them. And I was so happy when the Patriots just not beat them, just demolish them in that play.
Me too. Oh my gosh.
I was so happy. At the end of that game, I skipped out of my house and I just and I went along my day because it was my joy was brought to the high, them not losing but being embarrassed on a national stage.
Thomas Conroy, a producer with a strong opinion.
Those opinions not endorsed by everybody.
No, they are. I mean, for me, they totally are. And that's a guy who has been a Charger fan for the last couple decades, and before that, he was a New York fan, and he was rooting for a Boston team, a New England team, to win on a big stage. And I mean, I'm totally with you. I've never rooted harder for the Patriots in my entire life. I've always, I've really enjoyed watching Tom Brady, and so I'm in the minority there for people around here, especially with what the Patriots did to our San Diego Charger teams in the past. But that was so I haven't felt as good about somebody losing a game as I did about the Chargers getting thumped by the Patriots. That was just that was a great moment. Yeah, thank you, Thomas, for bringing that back up.
And just one other thing, it always chuckles to me because we cover high school sports in our other time away from here. And when you go to the CIF championship games, and you hear sponsored by the San Diego Chargers, that is the loudest boo from I ever heard for one group, and it always brings a tear to my eye. Whatever sporting event, and it doesn't matter what it is. It could be girls volleyball on a Friday night at at some high school randomly where it's like maybe not the bigger crowds of a football match or game, and it just, you hear the boos and it's so deafening. It brings me a cheer.
Yeah, you guys summed it up very well. But the thing, so it leaves a void right here in San Diego sports. So clearly, a bigger following and bigger interest than the Padres. But so, like you said, now we put that focus there. But what else do we watch? What other sports do we follow? We have an issue here in Mission Valley. It was on the ballot last year. Basically, two initiatives, whether San Diego citizens wanted to build a soccer stadium and have a surrounding soccer village. It was the Soccer City Initiative, and then the SDSU West was the other initiative for San Diego State to build more housing for students and more expand their campus and then bring a football stadium. So that's the one that passed. So now San Diego State has the rights to purchase the land and build a stadium. Do you think San Diego State as a college, will they be able to continue to be relevant in the sports world down here?
I sure hope so. You talk about the SDSU West initiative. I hope they get something built. Right now, Qualcomm sitting there in that giant parking lot is just a waste of really prime real estate space. I just want action. Yeah. I love San Diego State football and basketball. The baseball team's been really good. Soccer. They have all of these really good first-class sports programs, and I hope they get a venue down there. I think it's an opportunity still for soccer to come. I was hoping Soccer City would happen because it's guaranteed that money was going to be there and that they were going to get something built. I just hope something happens there. I don't like when here in San Diego a tendency has been for things to just get caught up in legislation and argument and nothing gets done. So I want to see some bulldozers. I want to see some shovels in the ground and make something happen. Keep things relevant for San Diego State and just for the sports community. I think this place, when you have a team to get behind and a venue to support, the Padres for the last decade have had terrible teams. Last year we lost close to 100 games, and you're still in the middle of the pack in the MLB in attendance because they have that amazing venue and it's a great experience, and people like to be active here. They say it's a fair weather sports town, but the people that are from here and even the transplants come in and want to get involved. And I don't know. I think we get a bad rap here, Andy.
I certainly agree.
We're here to change the narrative.
Exactly.
I like it.
So, thinking over the next 5-10 years, we'd love to get another major sports team here to San Diego. Mr. Producer Conroy, do you ever see another NFL team coming back here, an NBA team at some point, if we can get an arena, an NHL team? We obviously have a minor league hockey team, but any prognostication over there?
I think if an NFL team comes, it's going to be somebody moving out of a city. I don't think they're ready to expand to an expansion team here in the NFL. So I kind of look at the Buccaneers situation and don't sneeze on the Buffalo Bills, because those are both teams that are desperately looking for either a new stadium or a better deal on where they exist. And so that's where I see for the NFL. If it's going to be that, it's going to be a team that's trying to better themselves financially from their current situation. I don't think NBA, unfortunately, because the NBA, if you look at them, they go to obscure cities where they're the biggest game in town. They don't go to cities like San Diego. They go to like Oklahoma City, where there's no other competing professional franchise. But the NHL I do, because I think the NHL wants to expand more in the Pacific and kind of make that an equal to hockey on the East Coast and in the Midwest.
The NHL goals, I would love it.
Oh yes,
oh man,
absolutely.
that'd be so awesome. They'd have to keep the name.
Yeah.
You can't have a
no
hockey
way you're
team
going
in
away
San
from
Diego
that.
and not
No.
be the goals. All right.
And I saw your tweet about the football.
Yeah,
was
yeah,
cool,
Mr.
right?
Vilven with some nice graphic design. You
In my
will
spare
definitely
time.
be the lead graphic designer on any new uniforms for a new San Diego football franchise.
All right, I'm in. Sign me up.
Well, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Unfortunately, I have to head to work here momentarily, but we'll do it again next week. Again,
Yep.
looking a little bit further into Major League Baseball and our favorite team, the San Diego Padres. Happy early 4th of July to both of you. Any big plans, gentlemen?
No.
Yeah, no, me either. I don't know why. It kind of snuck up on me. You said it was July, like the second half of the year begins now, and I was just like, wow, where did the first half go? This has been a crazy year. So I'm sure something will come up, but nothing
Yes.
yet. Andy, one last thing. It's prediction time.
Oh, yes.
Do any Padres get in the home run derby, and do any Padres sneak on as an injury replacement in the actual All-Star game?
I am going with Franmil Reyes in the home run derby. Just he has a little bit more personality.
Yep.
But no other Padres in the All-Star game. I want it to be true, but
I think the hope is
next year will be our year with a handful of guys in there.
you never want someone to be like injured or stay injured. Trevor Story has been on the injured list with the Rockies with an injury. There's a chance that he would still go and just be inactive for the game, and in that case, maybe Fernando gets in, maybe even Machado. But yeah, I don't know. Never want to root for anyone to get injured, but I would love to see one of those guys in there, especially Fernando Tatis Jr. on the national stage. His excitement, get him on base a couple times and see what he does. That would be fun.
Fantastic. Well, that's going to wrap it up. Thanks so much, Thomas Conroy, for producing. Any last words in 20 seconds?
Machado gets in on somebody leaving due to an injury because Rob Manfred wants him there.
The celebrity status of Machado. All right, Brian Vilven, my co-host, Andy Bishop, signing off. We'll see you next time on the Best Coast Sports Connection.